I'm Amber 35, and this Thanksgiving at our family's Washington cabin turned everything upside down. The gravy boat slips from my hands, crashing onto the kitchen floor. Thick sauce splatters my sweater, a bitter mark of my role here. In the dining room, forks scrape plates. Voices hum with laughter. They've started eating without me. For 18 years, I cooked every holiday meal. Then my mom snapped, "Useless thing, bring food to your sister." Quickly. I don't answer. I set the tray down, turn, and stride out into the icy air. The bad things they are about to encounter will be understood by no one but this useless thing. Before I get to my story, I want to know what time and what city you are listening in. I'm happy to know how far my story goes. The next morning, my phone buzzes relentlessly on the motel bed where I crashed after storming out. 36 missed calls from Mom, her voicemails piling up. "Please come back." My fingers hover over the screen, then type 5 words. "The useless thing is busy." I hit send and toss the phone aside. The sting of her words from last night burns fresh, but something else churns inside, a realization that's been brewing for years. Since I was 17, I'd haul groceries through the Washington snow, chop onions until my eyes stung, and scrub pans while my sister soaked up the praise. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, I'd spend days prepping at our cabin while the family toasted her success. I thought it was love, until yesterday's slap of truth. Back at my apartment, I can't shake the weight. I open my laptop, needing distraction, and spot Mom's email open from when I borrowed it to print recipes. I shouldn't snoop, but my eyes catch a subject line: condo closing details. It's to my sister, dated last month. My stomach twists as I read. Mom and Dad wired her $20,000 for a down payment on a swanky Seattle condo. The same parents who called my modest apartment purchase reckless 2 years ago, refusing to help because I should save more. I scroll further. Another email mentions a family ski trip last winter to Aspen, no less. I wasn't invited. They never mentioned it. The betrayal lands like a punch. I keep digging, finding a message from my Aunt Mom's sister promising my sister Grandma's antique dining table for her new place. That table I loved as a kid, the one I'd hoped to inherit. It's perfect for her. The email reads as if I don't exist. My sister, the golden child, gets everything: money, heirlooms, trips, while I'm stuck slaving for their applause. I slam the laptop shut, heart pounding. Memories flood in. At 20, I spent my college breaks perfecting pie crusts for Mom's approval. At 25, I missed a work deadline to roast a turkey for Dad's clients. Last Christmas, I stayed up until 2 in the morning decorating the cabin while my sister bragged about her law firm wins. No one ever asked what I wanted. No one noticed me beyond the plates I set. My phone pings again, a group text from Mom. "Amber, we're planning Christmas at the cabin. Your sister's bringing colleagues, so make her favorite stuffing, the cranberry sauce, and those cheesy appetizers. Come early to set up, say 7. The nerve of it steals my breath. Not a word about yesterday. No apology for useless thing. Just more orders, as if I'm their caterer, not their daughter. I don't reply. Instead, I call Tracy, Mom's younger sister, who's always been different, quiet, observant. "I walked out last night," I say, voice steady. "Mom called me useless." Tracy sighs. "I saw how they treated you, Amber. I'm on your side." Her words feel like a lifeline. She tells me Jenna, her daughter, my cousin, was furious hearing about it. "She's done with their favoritism, too," Tracy adds. I hang up, staring at my phone. Another text from Mom pops up. "Don't forget the pecan pie, your sister loves it." My fingers itch to respond, but I hold back. The cabin's snowy isolation flashes in my mind, how they'll struggle without me when the roads ice over. I've always been their backbone, but they never saw it. Now they're about to. Hours later, my phone pings again, pulling me from the haze of last night's group text. It's Mom doubling down. "Amber, confirm you're bringing the stuffing and pecan pie for Christmas. Your sister's counting on you." The words sear like a fresh wound. No mention of her useless thing jab, no hint of regret, just another order for their Golden Girls' big holiday show. I let the message sit unanswered, my pulse quickening. By noon, I'm pacing my Seattle apartment, the sting of those emails still raw. $20,000 for my sister's condo, a secret ski trip grandma's table handed to her like a crown. I've been their invisible cook for 18 years, and they think I'll just keep serving. My fingers hover over the phone, then type a single word to the group chat: no. I hit send before I can second guess. The silence that follows feels like a held breath. Mom calls within minutes. Amber, what's this no about? Her voice is sharp, like I've spilled wine on her perfect tablecloth. I'm not cooking for Christmas. I say, steady but firm. I'm done being your hired help. She gasps, then recovers. This is for family, Amber. Your sister's bringing important clients. It's a big deal. I cut in. It's always a big deal for her. What about me? I've got a job, a life. When do I matter? The line goes quiet, her breathing uneven. She switches tactics. Let's meet and talk. That cafe on Pike Street tomorrow. I agree, mostly to see if she'll finally see me. Tracy texts right after heard about your no. Proud of you. Jenna, my cousin, chimes in. Mom's right. They've been unfair forever. Their support steadies me like a hand on my back. The next day, I walk into the cafe, the smell of coffee grounding me. Mom sits at a corner table, her purse clutched tight. Lips pursed. No smile, just a nod. Amber. This Christmas thing, you're overreacting, she starts, voice low but pointed. Your sister works so hard. We need you to pull through. I slide a notebook across the table, pages filled with tallies. 18 years of holidays, I've cooked 12 missed work deadlines for their parties, countless nights scrubbing dishes while they toasted her. When did you last ask what I need? I ask, voice calm but unyielding. She blinks, caught off guard. We appreciate you, she says, but it's hollow like a script. You appreciate what I do, I correct. Not me. Her face tightens, fingers gripping her mug. You're being selfish. Your sister needs this dinner to impress her firm. I lean forward. She's a lawyer, not a queen. She can figure it out. Mom's eyes narrow. We've always been a close family. Why are you doing this? For a moment, I see a flicker of guilt in her expression, but it's gone fast. I've been close to you, I say. But you've never been close to me. You've made that clear. I stand, leaving the notebook. I'm not coming to Christmas. Her voice cracks. You'd leave us like that. After everything, I pause at the door. You left me first, every holiday, every year. I walk out, the cafe's chatter fading behind me. My phone buzzes, another text from Mom pleading. I don't read it. Tracy calls as I step onto the snowy street. You okay? She asks. Yeah, I say, feeling lighter. I'm done carrying them. Jenna texts next, offering to meet up and talk. Their words, simple, real, remind me I'm not alone. But Mom's plea lingers, and I know this isn't over. They're not used to me saying no. Weeks later, I'm sprawled on a plush couch at a resort just outside Seattle, the hum of laughter wrapping around me like a warm blanket. Katie, my coworker friend, hands me a plastic cup of cider, her grin infectious. To no dishes, no demands, she toasts, clinking my cup. Zachary, another colleague, passes a plate of homemade cornbread, while Austin, a friend I met through Katie, scoops out lumpy but heartfelt pumpkin pie. The potluck spread lasagna, roasted veggies, brownies sits on a folding table, each dish a small gift from people who expect nothing but my company. For the first time in 18 years, Christmas isn't a chore. It's mine. I'd blocked Mom's number after our cafe showdown, her pleading texts left unread. Tracy and Jenna, my aunt and cousin, had texted their support, promising to join me for a holiday soon. My phone's been quiet since, no group texts ordering stuffing or pie, no calls guilting me back to the cabin. I lean back, sipping cider, the resort's cozy glow washing away years of resentment. These people, Katie, Zachary, Austin, see me, not just the meals I make. It's a freedom I never knew I could claim. Tracy calls midweek, her voice hushed over the line. Your mom and dad are in a mess, she says. The snow's brutal this year, roads to the cabin are half blocked. Your sister tried roasting a turkey, but it's still frozen solid. The potatoes charred. I bite my lip, holding back a laugh. They're hiring a caterer, Tracy continues. Cost them $500 last minute because no one's prepared. Your parents are at each other's throats over the bill. I nod, unsurprised. Mom and Dad leaned on me for perfect holidays, never seeing how it drained me. Now they're paying for it literally. Katie overhears setting down her fork. $500. That's rough. I shrug, voice calm. They thought I'd always show up, no questions asked. Austin chimes in, wiping crumbs from his shirt. Sounds like they're learning what happens when you take someone for granted. Zachary nods, adding, bet they're regretting that useless comment now. Their words spark a small, fierce smile on my face. The resort's chatter, the clink of cups, the warmth of this night. It's a life I didn't know I could build. My phone buzzes mid-meal, a text from my sister. Can you send your stuffing recipe? Clients are coming? I stare at the screen, her audacity almost funny. She's never lifted a finger for these dinners, yet expects me to bail her out. I hit delete, not replying. Let her scramble. Katie notices my expression. Family again, she asks. I nod. They're not my problem anymore. She squeezes my shoulder and we dive back into the potluck, passing plates, laughing over Austin's terrible pie crust. Tracy texts later, updating me. Your mom's stressed, says the caterer's late and your dad's mad about the cost. They're blaming each other. Jenna chimes in. Your sister's freaking out, her clients expect a big show. I set the phone down, unbothered. The cabin's chaos feels distant, like a storm I've walked away from. I've spent years carrying their holidays, my own needs buried under their demands. Not anymore. At work, I'm hitting my stride. My latest marketing campaign landed a client, and my boss noticed no small feat after years of being overshadowed by family obligations. Katie stops by my desk, suggesting another potluck soon. You're glowing, she says, and I realize she's right. Saying no to the cabin wasn't just about one holiday, it was about choosing myself. My phone lights up again, another text from my sister. I don't open it. The weight of their expectations is gone and I'm not going back. Days later, my phone lights up with another text from my sister. Amber, send me your cranberry sauce recipe. I'm hosting a client dinner. The nerve hits like a jolt. She's never touched a spatula in her life, yet expects me to hand over my work to save her show. I stare at the screen, fingers steady, and hit delete. No response. Let her figure it out. I'm back in my Seattle apartment, the quiet, a stark contrast to the resort's warmth last week. My sister's text isn't the only one. My Aunt Mom's sister messages next. Amber, you've upset everyone by skipping Christmas. Your sister needed you. The accusation stings, but only for a moment. I've heard it before, her siding with my sister, dismissing me as if I'm not family. I don't reply to her either. My silence is my answer now. At work, things are different. I'm a marketer, and my latest campaign just landed a major client. My boss pulls me aside, grinning. Amber, this is stellar. Keep it up. His words land like a rare gift, recognition I never got at home. I nod, a quiet pride settling in. For years, I juggled holiday prep with deadlines, always putting family first. Now I'm putting me first, and it shows. Katie swings by my desk, coffee in hand. You look lighter, she says, leaning against the cubicle wall. Ditching the family drama, agrees with you. I laugh, the sound genuine. It's like breathing for the first time, I admit. She invites me to a low-key dinner with her and Austin this weekend. No expectations, just pizza and bad TV. I say yes, without hesitation. Jenna texts later, her message short but loaded. Heard your mom's spiraling, says the holidays are ruined without you. Tracy follows up, her voice soft over the phone. Your sister's struggling to impress her clients. The catering fiasco didn't help. I lean back, picturing the cabin in disarray, empty plates, tense voices, my sister's polished facade cracking. I feel no guilt, just a strange calm. My phone buzzes again, another plea from my sister. Just send the recipe, Amber. It's not a big deal. I scoff louder than intended. Not a big deal, I've carried their holidays for 18 years. My own life shoved aside. I block her number, the action final like closing a door. Katie notices my expression as we grab lunch. Family again, she asks. Not anymore. I say, my voice firm. Back home, I open my laptop, tweaking a new campaign. My apartment feels like a sanctuary now, not a place to hide. I've missed deadlines for family before, but never again. Tracy calls, updating me. Your parents are barely talking. Your dad's mad about the catering cost. Your mom's blaming him for pushing you away. Jenna adds a text. Your sister's client dinner flopped. Word's getting around. I set the phone down, unbothered. Their mess isn't mine to clean. I'm done being their hired help. Months later, I'm scrolling through my phone in my Seattle apartment, the quiet hum of summer outside my window. A notification pops up, a local Washington community group on social media, buzzing with gossip. I shouldn't look, but curiosity pulls me in. A post catches my eye, a neighbor's comment about my family's disastrous Christmas at the cabin. Heard they paid a fortune for catering and still messed it up, it reads. Another reply mentions my sister's perfect family image crumbling. I set the phone down, a strange calm settling over me. Jenna texts, filling in the blanks. Your sister's losing clients, she writes. Her firm's big dinner flopped and word spread she couldn't pull off a simple holiday. I picture my sister, always polished, now scrambling to save face as a lawyer. Her reputation, built on the family facade I propped up for years, is cracking. I feel no urge to fix it. Tracy calls, her tone gentle but firm. Your mom's not doing well, she says. Stress from the holidays hit her hard, doctor's orders to rest. I nod, unsurprised. Mom's health has always been fragile under pressure, but I'm done carrying her burdens. The community group post spreads, likes piling up. Someone tags my Aunt Mom's sister, blaming her for stirring drama at the cabin. She kept praising one daughter while the other did all the work, a cousin's friend writes. I recognize the truth in it, but it doesn't hurt anymore. I've stepped out of their spotlight. My phone buzzes again, a call from Dad. I let it go to voicemail. His message is short. Amber, we need to talk. I delete it. My fingers steady. Then Mom tries her number, flashing. I block it just like I did my sister's. Katie stops by my apartment, pizza box in hand. Saw the online chatter, she says, kicking off her shoes. Your family's a hot topic. I shrug, grabbing a slice. Let them deal with it. She grins. You're a whole new Amber. I laugh, the sound light. My latest marketing project just got a promotion nod at work, and I'm planning a trip with Austin and Zachary, no family strings attached. This is my life now, not theirs. Jenna texts again, her words sharp. Your aunt's getting flack from neighbors, she's barely showing up to community stuff. I picture her, once the family's loudest cheerleader for my sister, now dodging whispers about her bias. The gossip isn't my doing, but it's a consequence of their choices. My sister's client list shrinks. Mom's health falters, Dad's calls go unanswered. They built this mess leaning on me for years while lifting her up. I open my laptop, checking work emails. A new campaign's due, and I'm ahead of schedule. Something I couldn't say when I was juggling their holidays. Katie notices my focus. You're killing it, she says, nodding at the screen. I smile, small but real. Feels good to be seen for me, not my cooking. Tracy calls later, her voice warm. Jenna and I are planning a barbecue, want in? I say, yes, no, hesitation. They're my family now, the kind that doesn't demand my labor. My phone lights up one last time, a text from my sister's new number. I don't read it. I block it, the action final like turning a page. Their drama, their gossip, their consequences, they're not mine anymore. 5 months later, I'm standing in a friend's cabin just outside Seattle, the smell of roasted vegetables and fresh bread filling the air. Tracy slides a tray of cookies onto the table, Jenna pours wine, Katie sets out her famous macaroni, and Austin carves a small turkey we all pitched in to make. This Thanksgiving, my first without family, feels like a deep breath after years underwater. No one's demanding I serve, no one's praising someone else while I work. Just us, my chosen family, passing plates, laughing, being together. I'm Amber 35, and I've built something new since walking out last year. My phone's been silent from mom, dad, my sister blocked after their endless calls and texts. I don't miss the weight of their expectations. Katie grins across the table, raising her glass, to Amber, who finally got her holiday. I laugh, clinking back, a warmth spreading through me. Jenna nudges my shoulder. This beats their chaos, she says, and Tracy nods, her smile soft. You deserve this. Back in my family's world, things have unraveled. Jenna got a call from a cousin last week, spilling the latest. Your mom's barely hosting anymore, she told me. After last Christmas, they tried another catered holiday, cost them $700 this time. It was a mess, food cold, everyone arguing. My sister, always the star, couldn't keep up her perfect image. Her law firm's clients dropped off, whispers about her dysfunctional family spreading through Washington's tight-knit community. Dad stopped talking to neighbors, embarrassed by the gossip. Mom's health hasn't improved, stress keeping her on edge. I don't feel triumph, just peace. Their chaos isn't my fault, it's the result of years treating me like hired help while lifting my sister up. I blocked their last attempt to reach me, a voicemail from Dad, his voice clipped, asking to fix things. I deleted it without listening. My sister tried a new number, texting about family unity. I blocked that too, no hesitation. At work, I'm thriving. My latest marketing campaign won a regional award, and my boss offered a raise. I'm planning a trip with Austin and Katie, no obligations, just fun. Tracy pulls me aside as we clear plates together. Your parents asked about you, she says quietly. I told them you're done. Jenna overhears, adding, they're out of chances. I nod, grateful for their support, their clarity. The cabin's warmth wraps around us as we eat. No one rushing, no one serving. I taste every bite, macaroni, turkey, Tracy's cookies, savoring the moment, not worrying about anyone's approval. My phone stays dark. No pings from family I've left behind. Their holidays, once my burden, are theirs to fumble now. Last I heard, they're skipping Thanksgiving altogether. Neighbors stopped inviting them, tired of the drama. This is my life now, chosen, not assigned. Setting boundaries didn't just free me from their demands, it showed me my worth. I'm not the hired help, never was. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, know this. Walking away can be hard, but it's how you find yourself. You deserve to be seen, to choose who lifts you up. I did, and I'm never going back.
Real estate never fails. Good luck. I hit send on that text message, my fingers steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. 20 minutes earlier, my husband Darren had just destroyed 15 years of careful financial planning with a single message from his supposed hunting weekend in Santa Fe. The audacity was breathtaking. Not just the betrayal, but the sheer stupidity of putting our entire life savings into some half-baked real estate scheme with his girlfriend. My name is Veronica Hale, and I'm 45 years old. For the past 15 years, I've been the financial backbone of our household here in Tucson, Arizona. While Darren played the charming salesman at Trevanta Corporation, I managed every dollar we earned, every investment we made, every safety net we built. Our retirement accounts, emergency fund, the equity in our home, I tracked it all with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. Darren used to call me the brain behind our success, back when he still respected what I brought to our marriage. That respect had been eroding for months, ever since he met Sky Winters at a company networking event. She was 28, blonde, and apparently ambitious in ways that I supposedly wasn't. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so devastating. While I was building our financial empire one careful decision at a time, Darren was busy being dazzled by someone who sold condos for a living and thought she was the next real estate mogul. The warning signs had been there. Late nights at the office that smelled like perfume instead of paperwork. Weekend hunting trips that coincidentally aligned with Sky's out-of-town property visits. The way he'd started criticizing my conservative approach to money, suggesting we needed to think bigger and take some risks. I'd ignored them all, foolishly believing that 15 years of marriage and shared success meant something. Now, staring at his text message on my phone screen, I realized just how naive I'd been. Moved our savings to Sky's real estate venture. She's ambitious, unlike you. We're going to flip houses together. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. Not only was he stealing our future, but he was doing it while insulting everything I'd accomplished. But as I sat in our pristine kitchen, surrounded by the life we'd built together, something cold and calculating settled in my chest. Darren had made one critical mistake in his grand betrayal. He'd forgotten that I wasn't just good with money. I was good with contracts, documentation, and the kind of legal paperwork that could protect us from exactly this scenario. Years ago, I'd insisted we both sign documents giving each other co-control over major financial decisions. At the time, Darren had joked that I was being paranoid. Today, that paranoia was about to save my life and destroy his. The foundation of our relationship had always been built on complementary strengths. Darren was the social one, the networker who could charm clients and close deals with his easy smile and natural charisma. I was the strategist, the one who turned his commissions into long-term wealth through careful planning and smart investments. For over a decade, it had worked beautifully. We were the couple other people envied, financially secure, professionally successful, seemingly unshakable. I'd met Darren when I was 30, fresh out of a master's program in finance and ready to build something meaningful. He was already established at Trevanta Corporation, selling industrial equipment with the kind of confidence that made clients trust him instantly. Our courtship had been a whirlwind of expensive dinners and weekend getaways, all funded by his generous commissions. But even then, I'd been the one suggesting we save for the future, invest wisely, think beyond the immediate gratification. After we married, I'd taken over our finances completely. Darren was brilliant at making money, but terrible at managing it. Left to his own devices, he would have spent every penny on the latest gadgets, luxury vacations, and whatever caught his fancy. I channeled his earnings into a diversified portfolio that grew steadily year after year. Our emergency fund reached 6 figures. Our retirement accounts were on track to give us a comfortable life well into our 70s. I'd even started a separate investment account that I privately called our Dream Fund. Money earmarked for the lake house we planned to buy someday. Darren had seemed grateful for my financial management, at least until recently. He'd bragged to his friends about my investment prowess, showing off our quarterly statements like trophies. "My wife's a genius with money," he'd say, wrapping his arm around my waist at dinner parties. "I just make it. She makes it grow." The pride in his voice had made me feel valued, essential, loved. But something shifted after he met Sky. Suddenly, my careful approach was boring. My diversified portfolio was too safe. My emergency fund was dead money that could be working harder. He'd started bringing home stories about Sky's real estate victories, a condo she'd flipped for a $20,000 profit, a commercial property she'd helped a client purchase that doubled in value. Each story felt like an indirect criticism of my methods, a suggestion that I was holding us back from greater success. I'd tried to explain the basics of risk management, the importance of steady growth over speculative gains. But Darren's eyes would glaze over during these conversations, and I could see him mentally comparing my spreadsheets to Sky's success stories. The woman who'd once been his financial genius was becoming his conservative anchor, dragging down his dreams of quick riches and exciting ventures. Now I understood that those conversations hadn't been about investment strategy at all. They'd been about justifying what he was already planning to do. The hunting weekend that changed everything had been planned for months. Darren and his buddies from Trevanta Corporation had supposedly booked a cabin in the mountains outside Santa Fe. complete with guides and all the gear they'd need for what Darren called a real man's weekend. He'd been unusually excited about the trip, buying new hunting clothes and spending hours researching the area online. At the time, I'd been happy to see him enthusiastic about something that didn't involve criticism of my financial choices. The first red flag should have been his reluctance to give me specific details about the cabin. When I'd asked for the address in case of emergency, he'd waved me off, saying the cell service would be terrible anyway, and that I should just relax and enjoy having the house to myself. The second red flag was his insistence on taking our tablet to download some hunting apps, despite his usual complaints that technology ruined the outdoor experience. But I'd trusted him. After 15 years of marriage, why wouldn't I? The text message arrived on Saturday afternoon, while I was reorganizing our home office. I'd been updating our investment spreadsheets, noting the steady growth in our accounts, when my phone buzzed with a message that shattered my world. Moved our savings to Sky's real estate venture. She's ambitious unlike you. We're going to flip houses together. I stared at the screen for a full minute, my brain refusing to process what I was reading. Then I grabbed our laptop and logged into our bank accounts with trembling fingers. The joint savings account that had contained $87,000 yesterday now showed a balance of $300. Our money market account was empty. Even the emergency fund I'd built over 10 years was gone. But it was the second text that truly revealed the depth of his betrayal. Don't bother calling. We're investing in something real for once. Sky knows what she's doing. This is our chance to actually make serious money, instead of hiding it in boring accounts. The casual dismissal of everything I'd built, everything we'd achieved together, hit me like a physical blow. 15 years of careful planning, sacrifice, and strategic thinking reduced to boring accounts. The woman who'd turned his sporadic commissions into genuine wealth was apparently just dead weight holding back his entrepreneurial spirit. I walked to our kitchen window and looked out at our neighborhood. The nice houses, the manicured lawns, the life we'd been able to afford because of my boring financial management. Then I thought about Sky Winters, with her flashy social media posts about luxury properties, and her apparent ability to convince my husband that throwing our life savings at her untested business venture was somehow a smart investment. That's when the shock began to crystallize into something much more dangerous. Cold, calculated fury. Darren had made the biggest mistake of his life, and he didn't even know it yet. Because while he was busy playing real estate mogul with his ambitious girlfriend, he'd forgotten one crucial detail about his boring, conservative wife. I wasn't just good with money. I was excellent with revenge. My first instinct was to call Darren immediately and demand he reverse whatever insane transaction he'd just made. But something stopped me. A voice in my head that sounded suspiciously like my mother, who'd always warned me that the first move in any crisis should be to gather information, not react emotionally. So instead of picking up the phone, I opened my laptop and began documenting everything. I took screenshots of our emptied accounts, saved copies of Darren's text messages, and pulled up our banking history to trace exactly when and how the transfers had occurred. What I discovered made my blood run cold. The transactions hadn't happened today during his supposed hunting trip. They'd been executed on Thursday afternoon, just hours before he'd left for Santa Fe with his overnight bag and hunting gear. He'd drained our accounts and then lied to my face about going hunting with his friends. But the real revelation came when I dug deeper into the transfer details. The money hadn't gone to any legitimate real estate investment company. It had been wired directly to a personal account belonging to Sky Winters. Not her business account, not a corporate investment fund, her personal checking account, which meant this wasn't even a real business venture. It was either a personal loan to his girlfriend, or, more likely, his way of funding their new life together while leaving me with nothing. The level of premeditation was staggering. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision made during a romantic weekend. Darren had been planning this for weeks, maybe months. While I'd been updating our investment spreadsheets and planning our financial future, he'd been systematically preparing to steal everything we'd built together. My hands were shaking as I picked up my phone to call our bank. The customer service representative was sympathetic but clear. Since both names were on the accounts and Darren had proper authorization, the transfers were technically legal. They couldn't reverse them without his consent or a court order. The woman suggested I contact a lawyer immediately if I suspected fraud or financial abuse. A lawyer. The word echoed in my mind as I hung up the phone. 6 months ago, after hearing one too many stories about friends getting blindsided by cheating spouses, I'd done something that Darren had mocked as paranoid. I'd consulted with Judith Brennan, one of the most ruthless divorce attorneys in Tucson. Not because I suspected anything, but because I believed in being prepared for every possible scenario. Darren had laughed when I'd told him about the consultation fee, calling it a waste of money and joking that I was already planning our divorce. Today, that consultation was about to become the best investment I'd ever made. I'd kept Judith's card in my home office filing cabinet, tucked away behind our tax documents where Darren would never think to look. As I pulled it out, I remembered her words from that initial meeting. The key to surviving financial infidelity is moving faster than the cheating spouse expects. Most betrayed partners waste crucial time trying to understand why it happened or hoping for reconciliation. The smart ones protect themselves first and process emotions later. My phone call to Judith was brief and to the point. This is Veronica Hale. We met 6 months ago for a consultation. My husband just stole our life savings and transferred it to his girlfriend. I want to go nuclear. Her response was immediate and reassuring. I remember you. How much money are we talking about? $87,000 in savings, plus whatever he can access from our other accounts. Maybe $150,000 total. When did the transfers occur? Thursday afternoon. He's currently in Santa Fe with his girlfriend, pretending to be on a hunting trip. Perfect. We'll have restraining orders on the remaining accounts by Monday morning. Can you be in my office in an hour? As I grabbed my purse and car keys, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Judith Brennan's office was exactly what I'd remembered from my consultation 6 months earlier. Impressive, but not flashy, with the kind of understated elegance that suggested competence rather than desperation for clients. Floor-to-ceiling law books lined the walls, and her desk was organized with the precision of someone who'd built a career on attention to detail. She was waiting for me when I arrived, having apparently cleared her Saturday afternoon schedule for what she'd already identified as a priority case. "Show me everything," she said without preamble, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. I handed over my phone with Darren's text messages and opened my laptop to display the banking records I'd compiled. Judith's expression remained neutral as she reviewed the evidence, but I caught the slight tightening around her eyes that suggested she'd seen this type of betrayal before and knew exactly how to respond to it. "Your husband made several critical mistakes," she said, after reviewing everything. "First, he documented his intent in writing. These text messages show clear evidence of financial abuse and potentially fraudulent misrepresentation of assets. Second, he transferred marital funds to a third party without your consent, which violates the co-control agreements you signed years ago. And third, he's currently out of state, which gives us a window to act before he can make any additional moves." She pulled out a legal pad and began writing notes with the speed of someone dictating strategy to herself. "Here's what we're going to do. Monday morning, I'll file for emergency relief to freeze all remaining joint accounts. We'll also request a temporary restraining order preventing him from accessing any marital assets until a court can review the situation. The fact that he transferred money to his girlfriend's personal account rather than a legitimate business entity works strongly in our favor." But it was her next words that made me sit up straighter. "More importantly, we're going to subpoena every financial record related to this so-called real estate venture. If Sky Winters accepted marital funds under false pretenses, if this isn't actually a legitimate business investment, she could be facing civil liability for receiving stolen property." The implications hit me immediately. "You mean she could be legally responsible for returning the money?" "Potentially, yes. And if we can prove she knew the funds were taken without your consent, The penalties become much more severe. Judith's smile was sharp and professional. I've seen this pattern before. Younger women who get involved with married men often don't understand they're making themselves vulnerable to legal action when they accept money that isn't rightfully theirs. She continued outlining our strategy, explaining how we'd document every aspect of Darren's deception and build a case that would not only protect my remaining assets, but potentially recover what he'd already stolen. The comprehensive approach was exactly what I'd hoped for. Aggressive, thorough, and designed to catch Darren completely off guard. There's one more thing, Judith added, leaning back in her chair. Your husband's hunting trip alibi actually works in our favor. If he's been posting about his weekend on social media while simultaneously claiming he's in the mountains with no cell service, we can use that to demonstrate a pattern of deception. Modern betrayals leave digital footprints that earlier generations couldn't have imagined. As I left her office an hour later, I felt the strangest sensation, relief mixed with anticipation. For months, I'd been watching my marriage deteriorate without understanding why or how to stop it. Now I had a plan, a timeline, and a legal advocate who understood exactly how to turn Darren's betrayal against him. The hunting weekend that was supposed to mark the beginning of his new life with Skye was about to become the biggest mistake he'd ever made. Sunday evening brought the first crack in Darren's carefully constructed narrative. He called just before 8 p.m., his voice artificially cheerful as he described his amazing hunting experience and the huge buck his friend Bradley had supposedly taken down. But I could hear something else underneath the manufactured enthusiasm. Nervous energy, like someone rehearsing a story they weren't entirely confident about. "The guys want to stay another day," he said, the words coming a little too quickly. "Some opportunity to track this elk that the guides think we can find. I might not be back until Tuesday evening." Of course he wanted to extend his trip. More time with Skye, more time to solidify their plans before facing the consequences of what he'd done. But his transparent lie gave me exactly what I needed. Additional time to implement Judith's strategy before he realized what was happening. "That sounds wonderful," I replied, keeping my voice warm and supportive. "Make sure you get some good photos for your social media. I know how much you enjoy sharing your adventures." The pause that followed told me everything I needed to know. Darren had been so focused on creating his hunting alibi that he'd forgotten about the digital trail he'd been leaving. If he'd really been in the mountains with no cell service, how had he been able to send me detailed text messages about real estate investments? And more importantly, what had he actually been posting online while supposedly disconnected from civilization? After hanging up, I spent the evening conducting my own investigation. Darren's social media accounts told a fascinating story. On Thursday, he'd posted a photo of hunting gear laid out on our bed with the caption, "Ready for a real man's weekend in the wilderness." On Friday, there were no posts at all, consistent with being in an area without cell service. But Saturday afternoon, right around the time he'd sent me the devastating text about transferring our savings, he'd posted a photo of an expensive restaurant meal in Santa Fe with the caption, "Sometimes the hunting lodge surprises you with amazing food." A hunting lodge with restaurant-quality plating and what appeared to be lobster tail? I took a screenshot and added it to my growing evidence file. But the real revelation came when I checked Skye's social media accounts. She'd been far less careful about maintaining the fiction. Her Instagram story from Saturday showed a champagne toast with perfectly manicured nails and what looked like an expensive hotel room in the background. The timestamp matched exactly with when Darren had sent me his cruel text messages about their real estate venture. I saved everything. Screenshots, timestamps, even the metadata from the photos that would prove where they'd been taken. By the time I finished documenting their weekend, I had a comprehensive record of their deception that would make Darren's hunting trip story completely impossible to maintain. Monday morning couldn't come fast enough. I'd spent the weekend moving between fury and calculation, but now I felt something else entirely, the cold satisfaction of having superior information and a better strategy than my opponents. Darren thought he was playing a game where he held all the cards. He'd stolen our money, secured his girlfriend's future, and left me with nothing but broken trust and empty accounts. What he didn't realize was that he'd been playing chess while I'd been preparing for war. At 7 a.m. Monday morning, I was sitting in my car outside Judith's office with a coffee and a folder full of evidence that would turn Darren's triumph into his downfall. My phone buzzed with a text from him. "Miss you, babe. Can't wait to come home and share all the hunting stories." I smiled as I typed my response. "Can't wait to hear every detail. I'm sure it will be fascinating." Within hours, Darren would discover that his boring conservative wife had been far busier during his hunting weekend than he could have possibly imagined. Judith's Monday morning blitz was a masterpiece of legal precision. By 10 a.m., she'd filed emergency motions with the family court requesting immediate freeze orders on all our remaining joint accounts. By noon, she'd served Trevanta Corporation with a subpoena demanding all records related to Darren's recent time-off requests and expense reports. By 2 p.m., she'd filed for a temporary restraining order preventing any further transfers of marital assets. But the real devastation came when she served Sky Winters with a civil lawsuit demanding the immediate return of the $87,000, plus interest and attorney fees. "Your husband's girlfriend just learned that accepting stolen marital funds makes her legally liable for restitution," Judith informed me during our afternoon phone call. "Her real estate venture is about to become very expensive." The speed of Judith's actions caught everyone off guard. Darren was still in Santa Fe, blissfully unaware that his financial world was collapsing. Sky was scrambling to find a lawyer to explain how she'd suddenly become a defendant in a civil lawsuit. And I was discovering that revenge served efficiently was infinitely more satisfying than revenge served hot. The first call came from our bank's fraud department, informing me that suspicious activity flags had been placed on all accounts associated with my Social Security number. The second call came from Darren's supervisor at Trevanta Corporation, asking if I knew why their legal department had received subpoenas related to my husband's recent travel expenses. But the most satisfying call came from Bradley Morrison, one of Darren's supposed hunting companions. "Veronica, I'm really confused," he said, his voice uncertain. "Some lawyer's office called asking about our hunting trip this weekend, but Darren told us weeks ago that he had to cancel because of a family emergency. We went without him. Is everything okay?" Everything was perfect. Tuesday afternoon brought the first cracks in Darren's composure. He called from the road, supposedly driving back from his successful hunting expedition, but his voice carried an edge of panic that he couldn't quite hide. "Veronica, did you do something with our bank accounts? I tried to access our checking account for gas money, and it's showing some kind of restriction." I let the silence stretch for a moment before responding with carefully calibrated concern. "That's strange. I haven't touched anything. Maybe you should call the bank when you get home. You know how paranoid they've become about unusual activity." "Unusual activity?" His voice pitched higher. "What kind of unusual activity?" "Oh, I don't know. Maybe large transfers or out-of-state transactions? You know how banks are these days." I paused, then added with perfect innocence, "How was the hunting, by the way? Did you get good cell service up in the mountains? Your text messages came through so clearly." The silence that followed told me he was beginning to understand that his weekend of triumph was about to become something very different. When Darren finally arrived home that evening, I was waiting in our living room with a cup of tea and a manila folder. He looked exhausted, and not from hunting. His designer hunting clothes were suspiciously clean for someone who'd supposedly spent 3 days tracking elk through mountain terrain. "We need to talk," he said, dropping his overnight bag by the door. "Yes, we do." I gestured to the chair across from me. "Sit down, Darren. Let's discuss your real estate investment strategy." The color drained from his face as he recognized the legal documents spilling out of my folder. His hunting weekend was officially over, and his education in the consequences of financial betrayal was about to begin. As I reflected on the swift and complete dismantling of his plans, I realized that revenge, when executed with precision and intelligence, was indeed a dish best served cold and efficiently. We can't cancel Adele. That would ruin your sister's entire year. My mother's voice came through the phone with the same dismissive tone she'd used my entire life. I gripped the hospital bed rail tighter, feeling the pre-surgery anxiety mix with something much worse, complete abandonment. Mom, I need emergency surgery to remove a tumor. I just need you to watch the twins for a few hours, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My twin baby girls, Sophia and Grace, were only 8 months old, and the thought of them being with strangers while I was under anesthesia terrified me. You're being a problem again. Always so dramatic. My father's voice joined in from the background. Can't you find someone else? We've had these tickets for months. I'm Naomi Clark, 34 years old, and I've spent most of my adult life being the family's financial safety net. I work as a senior marketing manager for Hollowgate Systems here in Portland, Oregon, and despite being a single mother to twin girls, I've never missed sending my parents their monthly assistance. $500 every month, plus groceries when they're tight, plus the down payment for my sister's car last year. I thought that kind of support meant something. I thought it meant I could count on them when I truly needed help. The concert is tomorrow night, my mother continued. Your sister would be devastated if we missed it. Surely your surgery can wait a day or two. The surgeon had been clear. The tumor needed to come out immediately. Every day we waited increased the risk of complications. But here I was, lying in a hospital gown, having this conversation with people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. Mom, this isn't something I can reschedule. It's cancer. They need to operate now, I whispered, feeling tears sting my eyes. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you should have thought of this before having babies without a father around, my mother snapped. We have obligations too, you know. The line went quiet, except for my father muttering something about me always creating problems at the worst times. I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting the tiny holes to keep myself from completely falling apart. My sister Kelly had never asked them for anything because she'd never had to. I'd been covering her expenses for years. The car I helped buy, the credit card debt I'd quietly paid off, the rent money when she was between jobs. Something cold settled in my chest as I realized this wasn't shock or surprise. Deep down, I'd always known where I stood in their priorities. The tumor hadn't just revealed itself in my scan. It had revealed something equally poisonous that had been growing in our family dynamic for years. Growing up, I'd always been the responsible one. While Kelly spent her teenage years focused on friends and boyfriends, I was working part-time jobs and saving for college. My parents praised her social life and worried that I was too serious for my own good. When she dropped out of college halfway through her sophomore year to find herself, they supported her decision. When I graduated summa cum laude and landed my first marketing job, they barely acknowledged it. The pattern continued into adulthood. When my parents faced foreclosure 3 years ago, I'd liquidated my entire emergency fund to help them keep the house. When Kelly needed a car for her new job, I'd covered the down payment without hesitation. Every birthday, every holiday, every family crisis, I was the one they called. Not to check on me, but to ask what I could contribute. Even when I got pregnant with the twins through IVF, deciding to become a single mother by choice, my parents' first concern wasn't my health or happiness. It was whether I'd still be able to help out financially with babies to support. I'd assured them I would, and I'd kept that promise even through the exhausting early months of twin motherhood. Naomi always lands on her feet, my mother would tell people, as if my stability was effortless rather than carefully built through sacrifice and hard work. She's got that good job, and everything figured out. What they didn't see were the nights I'd stayed up until 2 a.m., working after the babies finally fell asleep, making sure I could cover my own bills and theirs. They didn't see me eating cereal for dinner so I could afford to send them grocery money. They didn't see me postponing my own medical checkups because I was stretched so thin. But I justified it all by telling myself that family was everything, that blood meant something, that if I ever truly needed them, they'd be there for me the way I'd been there for them. The surgeon knocked on my door, pulling me from my memories. "Miss Clark, we're ready to take you into surgery now. Is your childcare situation sorted out?" I nodded, having spent the last hour arranging for a professional babysitter through an emergency service. It cost more than I could afford, but I had no choice. "Yes, everything's arranged." "Good. Your neighbor seems very reliable," he said, consulting his chart. "Mrs. Patterson, right? She's been asking about you." I almost corrected him, then realized it didn't matter. The elderly woman next door had shown more concern for my well-being in the past hour than my own parents had shown in years. Maybe that said everything I needed to know about who my real family was. The anesthesia had worn off by evening, leaving me groggy but aware of the hollow ache in my chest that had nothing to do with the surgery. The tumor was gone. Benign, thankfully. But the emotional wound my parents had inflicted felt raw and infected. I stared at my phone for an hour before finally checking my messages. Nothing from my parents, not even a text asking if I'd survived the surgery. But there were 3 messages from my sister Kelly, each one more excited than the last about the Adele concert. Photos of her outfit, videos of her and my parents getting ready, updates about their seats. In the final video, I could hear my mother in the background saying, "Naomi will be fine. She always is." The nurse came in to check my vitals and found me crying. "Are you in pain? I can increase your medication." "No," I said, wiping my eyes. "It's not that kind of pain." When I was discharged the next morning, I called the babysitter to arrange pickup of the twins. Mrs. Patterson had apparently been checking on them every few hours, and the sitter reported that Sophia and Grace were perfectly content. I paid the bill, nearly $300 for overnight care, without complaint. It was worth every penny to know my daughters had been safe and loved while I couldn't be there. Driving home with the twins babbling happily in their car seats, I felt something shift inside me. The medication made everything feel slightly surreal, but my thoughts were crystalline clear. I was done. Done being the family bank account. Done being taken for granted. Done pretending that my parents' love came without conditions. At home, I opened my laptop and canceled the automatic transfer I'd set up years ago. $500 a month that would now stay in my daughter's college fund where it belonged. I deleted my parents' numbers from my grocery delivery app and canceled the credit card I'd given them for emergencies. Then I blocked their numbers entirely. It felt both terrifying and liberating, like jumping off a cliff while knowing I had wings. The twins needed their afternoon nap, and as I settled them in their cribs, Grace reached up and touched my face with her tiny hand. Sophia gave me one of her gummy smiles that never failed to melt my heart. These 2 perfect little humans were my priority now. Not parents who couldn't be bothered to call after my surgery. Not a sister who took my generosity for granted. I'd spent years believing that love meant constant giving, constant availability, constant sacrifice. But watching my daughters sleep peacefully, I realized I'd been modeling the wrong lesson. Love was supposed to be reciprocal. Love was supposed to show up when it mattered most. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Probably my parents trying to reach me from Kelly's phone. I turned the phone face down and went to make myself a proper dinner for the first time in months. 3 days passed in blissful silence. No demanding calls about late bills, no guilt trips about family obligations, no requests for emergency money transfers. I focused entirely on healing and caring for Sophia and Grace, discovering what life felt like when I wasn't constantly worried about everyone else's problems. On Thursday evening, as I was giving the twins their baths, someone pounded on my apartment door with the kind of urgency that suggested an emergency. My heart rate spiked as I quickly wrapped both babies in towels and carried them to the living room. Through the peephole, I saw Kelly standing in the hallway, her face red and tear-streaked. She was alone, which surprised me. Usually when there was family drama, my parents sent her as their messenger while they maintained their dignity in the background. "Naomi, I know you're in there," she called out. "Please, we need to talk." Something terrible has happened. I considered ignoring her, but Sophia started crying at the loud noise, and I didn't want to upset the babies. I cracked the door open, keeping the chain lock engaged. "What do you want, Kelly?" "Can I come in, please? I've been calling and texting for 2 days. Mom and Dad are freaking out because you're not responding." "I'm not available to them anymore," I said calmly. "Or to you, for that matter." Her eyes widened with what appeared to be genuine confusion. "What do you mean?" "Naomi, this is serious. Dad lost his job yesterday. They're going to lose the house." I felt a flicker of the old panic, the immediate urge to ask how much they needed and how quickly I could transfer it. But I pushed that feeling down and studied my sister's face more carefully. She looked genuinely distressed, but there was something else there. Something that reminded me of the way she used to look when she wanted to borrow my car or needed me to cover for her with our parents. "That's unfortunate," I said finally, "but it's not my problem." "Not your problem? Naomi, you've been helping them for years. They're counting on you. We all are. Were you counting on me when I needed surgery and they chose a concert instead?" Kelly's expression shifted, and I could see her trying to formulate an explanation that would make her parents' behavior seem reasonable. "That was different. They had those tickets for months, and your surgery turned out fine anyway. You're being dramatic about this." The word dramatic hit me like a physical blow. It was the same word my father had used, the same dismissive attitude that had characterized my entire relationship with my family. Even now, even after everything, they couldn't acknowledge that they'd done anything wrong. "I had emergency surgery to remove a tumor, and instead of watching my children, they went to a concert," I said slowly. "And I'm the one being dramatic? You know Mom has anxiety about medical stuff. And they really did have those tickets." "Stop." I held up my hand. "Just stop. I don't want to hear explanations or excuses. I'm done subsidizing people who can't be bothered to show up when I need them." Kelly's mask finally slipped completely. "You can't just abandon your family because of one misunderstanding. What kind of person does that?" "Mom and Dad are scared, Naomi. They don't know what they're going to do without your help. They should have thought of that before treating me like a bank account instead of a daughter." I started to close the door, but Kelly pushed against it. "Wait, what if Dad apologizes? What if they both apologize? Would you consider helping then?" The desperation in her voice was almost pathetic. But what struck me most was the transactional nature of her proposal. Not that they were sorry for hurting me, but that they might be willing to say sorry if it meant the money would start flowing again. "This isn't about apologies," I said, stepping back from the door. "This is about finally seeing who you all really are." Kelly's face crumpled. "We're your family, Naomi. We love you. You know that, right?" "No," I said quietly. "You love what I provide. There's a difference." I could see her trying to process this, her mind working to find the right words to change my mind. But instead of reflecting on the truth of what I'd said, she shifted into attack mode. "You're being selfish," she said, her voice rising. "You make good money. You don't have a husband to support, and you've always been fine taking care of everyone. Why are you changing the rules now?" The casual cruelty of her words, the implication that being a single mother made my financial struggles less valid, that my success meant I owed them something, crystallized everything I'd been feeling. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a communication issue. This was who they were, and who they'd always been. "I'm changing the rules because I finally realized I've been playing a rigged game," I said. "And I'm done losing." I closed the door and turned the deadbolt, ignoring Kelly's continued knocking and pleading. Grace had started crying again, disturbed by the loud voices, and I focused on comforting her while Sophia babbled contentedly in my arms. After about 10 minutes, the knocking stopped, and I heard Kelly's car start in the parking lot. I felt strangely hollow, like I'd just performed surgery on myself and removed something that had been poisoning me for years. My phone rang immediately, a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail and played the message back while preparing the twins' dinner. "Naomi, this is your mother." Her voice was strained, more formal than usual. "Kelly told us about your conversation. We need to discuss this situation like adults. Please call me back immediately." The tone was all wrong. No acknowledgement of my surgery, no concern for my well-being, just irritation that I wasn't falling in line. I deleted the message and blocked that number too. Over the next few days, they tried everything. Calls from different numbers, emails to my work account, even a card in the mail from my father with a formal, stilted apology that read like it had been written by committee. But nothing addressed the fundamental issue. They still saw me as a resource to be managed rather than a person to be loved. The most telling attempt came when Kelly showed up at my office building during lunch. Security called to ask if I wanted to meet with her in the lobby, and I could see her through the window, pacing and checking her phone. She looked tired and stressed, probably because she was dealing with the full weight of our parents' expectations for the first time in her life. I told security I wasn't available, and watched from my office window as Kelly finally gave up and drove away. It should have felt satisfying, but instead, I just felt sad. Sad for the family relationships I'd thought we had. Sad for the years I'd wasted trying to earn love that was never really available. And sad for my daughters who would grow up without grandparents because those grandparents had chosen pride over connection. But beneath the sadness was something stronger. Relief. For the first time in my adult life, I was making decisions based solely on what was best for me and my children. The financial pressure was still there, but it was honest pressure. The normal challenge of supporting my own family, rather than 3 families on one income. 2 weeks after Kelly's office ambush, I was settling into my new reality. The twins were thriving, my recovery was progressing well, and I'd even managed to start putting money aside for the first time in years. Without the constant drain of supporting my parents, I could afford things like organic baby food and a better childcare arrangement that didn't leave me scrambling every time they got sick. I was giving Sophia and Grace their evening bath when I heard the familiar sound of a car door slamming in the parking lot, followed by heavy footsteps on the stairs. My apartment was on the 2nd floor, and the footsteps stopped right outside my door. The knock was different this time. Not Kelly's desperate pounding, but a slow, deliberate rap that somehow managed to convey authority and entitlement. I dried my hands on a towel and looked through the peephole. My father stood in the hallway, wearing his best jacket and holding his hat in his hands like a character from an old movie. Behind him, partially hidden in the shadows, was my mother. She looked smaller than I remembered, her shoulders hunched with what could have been shame or simply fatigue. I stood there for a long moment, watching them through the peephole. My father shifted his weight from foot to foot and checked his watch. My mother whispered something to him, and he shook his head tersely. They looked like people waiting for a job interview they weren't sure they wanted. Part of me wanted to open the door just to see what they would say, but a larger part of me remembered lying in that hospital bed, terrified and alone while they enjoyed a concert. I remembered the casual way my mother had dismissed my cancer scare, the automatic assumption that my needs would always come second to their wants. The twins were splashing happily in their bath, completely oblivious to the drama playing out in the hallway. I looked at their innocent faces and made a decision that felt both easy and final. I walked away from the door. They knocked again, more insistently this time. Then I heard my father's voice, muffled, but clear enough to understand. "Naomi, we know you're in there. We can hear the babies. We just want to talk." Then my mother's voice, higher and more strained. "Please, honey, we're your parents. We love you." I almost laughed at the timing of that declaration. Where was that love when I needed emergency surgery? Where was it during all the years I'd sacrificed my own financial security for theirs? Love shouldn't have to be declared during a crisis. It should be demonstrated consistently through actions. They stayed for almost an hour, occasionally knocking and calling out. At one point, My father's voice took on the edge of anger I remembered from childhood. This is ridiculous, Naomi. You can't just shut out your family because your feelings got hurt. We raised you better than this. But they hadn't raised me better than this. They'd raised me to be convenient, to be available, to prioritize their needs over my own. The person who was strong enough to set boundaries, who valued herself enough to demand reciprocal love. That person I'd had to raise myself. Eventually, the hallway fell silent. I heard their footsteps retreating, heard car doors slam and an engine start. When I was sure they were gone, I checked the peephole again and saw that my father had left something on the doormat. It was an envelope with my name written in his careful handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before deciding to leave it there. Whatever was inside, another hollow apology, a list of their financial troubles, a guilt trip disguised as a letter. I didn't need to read it. The envelope stayed on my doormat for 3 days before Mrs. Patterson, my elderly neighbor, knocked to ask if I wanted her to bring it inside. I thanked her, but left it where it was, like a test of my own resolve. Every time I stepped over it, I felt a little stronger. On Friday morning, as I was leaving for work with the twins, I finally picked it up. Not because I wanted to read it, but because I was tired of seeing my father's handwriting every time I came home. I threw it in the dumpster on my way to the car. At the office, my colleague Brittany noticed I seemed different. "You look relaxed," she said during our morning meeting. Like genuinely relaxed. What's your secret? I almost told her about cutting off my family, but something held me back. It still felt too fresh, too raw to share with anyone who might try to convince me to reconcile. Instead, I just smiled and said I'd been sleeping better. The truth was, I had been sleeping better. For the first time in years, I wasn't lying awake worrying about whether my parents could make their mortgage payment or whether Kelly needed money for car repairs. My stress dreams had shifted from financial catastrophes to normal working mother anxieties. Daycare germs, project deadlines, the twins' sleep schedules. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number with a local area code. My first instinct was to ignore it, assuming it was another attempt by my family to reach me. But something made me answer. "Miss Clark? This is Janet from Meridian Bank. I'm calling about the account ending in 4782. There's been some unusual activity, and we wanted to verify." I interrupted her. "I'm sorry, but I don't have an account with that number. The account is listed under Thomas Clark and Margaret Clark, but you're listed as an authorized user and emergency contact." My parents' account. The one I'd removed myself from years ago, or so I thought. "I need to be removed from that account immediately," I told Janet. "I'm no longer associated with those account holders in any capacity." "Of course, Miss Clark. I can process that removal right away. But I should let you know, the account is significantly overdrawn, and there have been several returned payment attempts this week. As the emergency contact, you would normally be notified. I don't want to be notified about anything related to that account," I said firmly. "Please remove all my information and don't contact me again about their financial situation." After I hung up, I sat in my office chair feeling oddly detached from the news. A few months ago, hearing that my parents were in financial trouble would have sent me into immediate crisis mode. I would have been calculating how much I could transfer, what bills I could delay, how I could solve their problem before it got worse. Now, I felt nothing but a mild curiosity about how long it had taken them to drain their account without my monthly contributions. 3 weeks, apparently. That told me everything I needed to know about how they'd been managing their money all these years. My phone buzzed with a text from another unknown number. "Naomi, this is Kelly. Mom and Dad's electricity got shut off. They're staying with me, but my landlord says they can't stay long. Can we please talk?" I deleted the message without responding. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my banking app and looked at my account balance. For the first time since the twins were born, I had a substantial emergency fund. Money that was mine. earmarked for my daughter's future instead of my parents' poor financial decisions. I smiled and put my phone away. The cycle was finally broken, and it felt like freedom. Looking back, I realized that sometimes the greatest act of love toward yourself is walking away from people who only love what you can give them. And I had finally learned that lesson well enough to protect my daughters from repeating my mistakes.